Right, hello everybody, or should I say bonjour, or it's the afternoon, bonsoir. So we're back out in France. I've had to come out just to do a little bit of admin for the house, but obviously I'll take the opportunity to grab the scram and go for a spin. So this video is a little bit of a link on to the one we did a little while ago about the motorbike industry and the market and the rest of it, but it's linked more to licenses and the cost around licenses, but also, as usual, I'm going off on a tangent and all sorts of things, but it's all loosely linked. But it's a nice day, so I thought I'd have a nice chat. But stick with it, because there's some gratuitous drone shots here because I'm practicing. So here we go. Right, we'll have a quick word from our sponsor, a French word from our sponsor, before we get started. Here he comes. It's Milo. Merde. I have no idea what he just said, but it probably wasn't good. Right, let's get on with the video. I don't know. Right, hello everyone. Yes, we're in France again, so I'm back on the scram. So it's nice to see you all, and nice to see you join me again for today. So I thought I'd do this video about the costs around motorcycle licenses, because I see this quite a lot in why there's not so many people riding bikes and stuff at the moment, or not new people coming into bikes. And I thought, well, is it that expensive to get a bike license? So I thought I'd have a look, and yeah, it is. Spoiler alert. Well, it is and it isn't, isn't it? So because the problem with motorbike licenses is that it's sort of chicken and egg a little bit when you get to the last bit, and I'll elaborate on that in a minute. Because the actual physical costs of tests is actually not that high, is it? I broke it down, so if you went from if you wanted to go for your full bike license, and I'm not going to talk about direct taxes here, you're talking about full bike licenses, I had to write it down. So if you went for your CBT and then your mod 1, mod 2 theory test as well, so you've got to get that done, which is the same whether it's for a bike or car, isn't it? You've got to have a theory test, although obviously the test is different. You're looking at £275. So that doesn't sound like a huge amount of money. Obviously you can get into motorbiking with less than that, because you haven't got to take your mod 1 and mod 2. If you just want to get on the road, then and you want to ride like a 125, then you're looking at your CBT and your theory. So the CBT is sort of like the most expensive initial part of it, isn't it, really? And the CBT isn't run by the government, so you don't go to a test centre for that. You've got to go through a motorcycling organisation or a training company, and that seems to be around the sort of 150, 160, 160 pound mark. So but I know we complain about the cost of some of these things, and I was in business for a long time, and I know just the cost of just even getting you out of bed or what you put on your value of just getting you out of bed is these days, and we've all got to make a living. So I think I can remember doing CBT and thinking, well, that was it was a very worthwhile thing, and those training courses still have to put their self on the line a little bit, don't they, to say that yes, it's not a pass or fail, is it? You've got to complete it, but it's to say yes, we're going to issue a certificate for that, and that you completed it successfully. So they still have a reputation to keep if they're putting 3 people through there which are just no good at all. I can remember the people I did mine with, which were really, really good, that was going through, they were rejecting people that didn't turn up with the right footwear and clothing, all this sort of stuff, which I thought was really good. That to me just meant that, yeah, these people have a bit of integrity, and I think that's just one of the things I like about certain companies, that if they show some integrity, you start to think, okay, these are the people for me. And you'll find I jump around this in a little bit. When I used to do all my training, I used to do this all the time. I jump around the subject. So, 275 to get to that point, or 160 to get for your CBT. Get on your 125. You've got to have L plates on, and the CBT only lasts for 2 years, doesn't it? This brings me to another point, though, and there's a lot of people doing CBT to get onto a 125, and the people doing CBT is far greater than the people taking the Mod 1 and Mod 2 test, because the Mod 2 test, and this brings us back into, do we think there's not so many people riding bikes now or going for their test? The numbers haven't changed a lot. The figures that are available 22 to 23, and you've got to sort of put COVID in there, it makes it a bit awkward, but the figures will still stand up. There was only 100 people difference actually passing their Mod 1 and Mod 2 in those 2 years. So it's about 12,500 people. So that's quite a lot, isn't it? I think it's nowhere near what it is to cars, but I think people taking Mod 1, Mod 2, going right through the process at 12,500, it was something like 12,500 compared to 12,400. So not a lot, but the numbers which completely escape me now, that we're taking CBT and the theory was way in excess of that. And it makes you think, well, why aren't people going on to the next level? Why aren't they going through to their test? Well, there's a good answer to that, isn't there? Because the people taking CBT to get on the 125 are not interested in going on bigger bikes. The majority of those people, because what they're doing, and this brings me to another point in a minute, is that they're all getting on mopeds to go and deliver your peri-peri chicken. And that's what's happening, isn't it? So there's a huge lump of people that are using that route to get onto slightly bigger mopeds to deliver food, and that's what they're doing. The other point I'd like to make about that is that when they're doing that, my concern always has been with that is how can you justify letting someone be essentially a commercial motorbike rider on L plates? You'd think you'd have to go through a certain level of competency greater than just a CBT, wouldn't you, to be able to use a vehicle as a commercial vehicle for working, and that's what those delivery drivers are. Now, I'm not wishing to cast aspersions on any of those people. They're there to make a living, all the rest of it. I may end up doing that one day. But God, does that worry you that we're allowing people to go into a commercial basis to ride a bike, particularly high mileage like that commercially, but on L plates? I find that I'd like to know what people think about that, because I find that a really odd situation. Because I did a little bit of research into this and looked at as a Renault 4 goes past. Lovely, you might see that, Enfield. You might see that that the attrition rate or the accident rate of delivery drivers is high. Now, I could only really get figures, but I don't see why it would be any different in the UK. The number of delivery drivers that were killed on the roads, and there was a big push around this in Australia, I think from 2017 onwards, and these are sort of registered as deaths of delivery drivers, and there's probably a whole raft of people that haven't been recorded that way. It was something like 17. This is back in 2017. When you now look at during COVID and after COVID, the amount of these delivery Uber Eats and Just Eats and that, these companies absolutely blossomed, didn't they? Because everybody was working from home, or everybody wanted food coming in. So the amount of those riders, particularly in the UK, who are now riding on L plates delivering food, must be huge. The increase must be enormous. And that brings you on to this thing about when you look at the bike sales in the UK, something like the top 3 or 4 are mopeds. So you know, it's not till you get to number 4, 5, 6 of motor vehicles which are motorcycles being sold in the top 10, you know, that's after that. So all those initial ones are mopeds, and they're all being bought by these delivery companies. So it's a little bit similar to when we were in India the other week, you know, seeing the thousands and thousands of mopeds, you know, that Honda is selling into that market, because they're all being used by hire companies. So, you know, I think if someone took a really deep dive into the accident rate of motorcyclists, because last year the death rate of motorcyclists was about 317 killed on the roads, and the majority of those were those accidents involved a vehicle, a car, and you tend to find that those accidents, you know, that we put these in a high risk category because you're so vulnerable. It's the same as cyclists and pedestrians. The highway code puts the priority to road users as the high risk group, and the most important road users is pedestrians. It's pedestrians, cyclists, horse riders, and then motorcycles, and we come down the line a little bit. Because you're the most vulnerable, they put it into those groups. So it's interesting. I think what would worry me is that we if you looked at the people taking theory tests and CBT, and they're only using bikes for 2 years, because then you've got to take it again because your CBT lapses, it makes you wonder whether the attrition rate is so high that your lifespan as a delivery rider, maybe in London and that, or, you know, before you become injured or you've had enough, is 2 years. You know, I'm plucking things out of the air there. That'll give you attrition rate sort of similar to, you know, Second World War fighter pilots, you know, in the Battle of Britain. And I'm only being slightly flippant there. So, you know, it's a dangerous occupation, isn't it? You know, I just don't understand why you could be riding commercially on L plates. I find that a bit odd. You can't do it as an HGV driver, can you? So, and I wonder whether, you know, people are honest with their insurance companies, saying, well, and you'd like to think that insurance companies who do massive insurance policies for companies that do deliveries are all those riders on L plates. I'd be surprised if they are being truthful with that. It'd be interesting to know, wouldn't it? So, getting back to the cost of taking your full bike test, there's a figure that's always banded around, isn't it? It's £1,000. It costs £1,000 to get your motorbike licence. Well, it doesn't, as far as I can tell, unless you go direct access, sort of from beginning to end, and that again causes me cause for concern. Is this, you know, the quick route to getting your licence? You know, you get your licence, and what do? You get straight onto an R1, and I've heard people doing that, and that's your first experience. You know, it's like going from a G-Whiz to a Formula One car, isn't it? Within 3-4 days. It's no wonder there's a lot of accidents out there. So if you do like an intensive 5-day course, you go, you know, your CBT, you do your theory, you do your CBT, you do your Mod 1. The Mod 1, for people who doesn't know, it's an off-road course, so it's you know, for doing slalom, stops, turns, and all that sort of stuff. You must pass that first week and go on to your Mod 2 and finish. There's been a lot of talk around removing the 2 parts, making it 1 part. But I don't really know who's called. I don't think that overcomplicates the system. I think it gives a little bit of integrity to the actual test process, and it's not in the slightest bit about the government making money off the back of that, because they're not. The Mod 1 test is only about £15 if you took it in separately, so no one's making any money out of that. They're losing money for that. To get someone to go to a test centre to test you, they're not making any money at that. So it's not a money thing. It just depends whether it should be, rather than a straightforward test, it should be a compulsory long-term rider ability, you know, whether you do something similar to IAMs and stuff like that. So it's difficult in it, but I think you can certainly go from 0 to hero, probably for around £400, I think you can do that. The problem why it is so expensive, or seems very expensive, is because to do your mod 1 and 2, you need to be riding a bike of over a certain capacity. Now you can't ride to the test centre with your 650 bike because you can't ride legally on the road with it. So because you can't ride it on L plates as such, unless you're part of a riding school. So you're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place, aren't you? And I'm sure that is correct. You can book your mod 1 and 2 outside. You can just do that directly through the government website, as far as I can tell. But how do you do it? You'd have to get your bike trailered to the test centre, and even then, how can you ride it on the road? Because someone's going to insure you to do that. So you've got to do it as part of a motorbike training centre, as far as I can see. So you are stuck. You are slightly at the mercy of the motorcycle training companies. Now, I don't think they are overcharging particularly. Doing this stuff is not cheap, and to maintain motorcycles, and I expect the insurance is astronomical for these companies. So, tricky one, isn't it? I think that the cost really just comes from the only way you can do it is through a training company. So you're going for a third party to get your government pass certificate. So yeah, if you look at the cost of a car license, I think the main difference is they give you one hand and take it away with the other. With a car license, the actual cost of the test is not that much different really. When you add the two tests together, a car test is about 60 odd quid. So, but the cost of the lessons, I don't know, what's a car driving lessons now, between £45 and £60 for an hour, and that still seems pretty cheap actually to me. For someone to come to your door, pick you up, take you out for an hour, drop you back off again, you can do that for a taxi. You couldn't go in a taxi for an hour and only pay £45. So it's quite good value, I think, in that respect. And then once you do get your license, for youngsters getting in a car, the insurance it's almost prohibitive, isn't it? So, and for motorbikes, I think the insurance for I'd like to know what it would cost a new. Well, I don't even think if the thing with new riders, isn't it? Because there's not many youngsters going for direct access as such. They're not jumping straight onto a high performance bike. People in later life do that. I know I've sort of slightly contradicted myself, but this thing about people going from 0 to hero up to an R1 straight away. But the insurances must be very high to do that, and that's not a lot of people doing that. And the pass rate as well. The pass rate for Mod 1 and Mod 2 is about 70%, and that's not really changing. And it's the same for all people. So ladies and men, it's very similar. There's hardly any difference in the pass rate on those. But 70%, what does that tell you? Possibly that the test is hard enough. I think if you had a 100% pass rate, you'd worry that it wasn't really strict enough. So 70% is pretty good. I think that's showing a certain level of integrity of the actual test itself. I can remember doing my test and being moderately petrified, but I can remember the instructor saying to me, or the guy that was doing the test, when we finished, he said, "What bike are you buying?" And I can't remember. It was quite a slow bike. It wasn't a sports bike. And he said, "Oh yeah, they're not fast enough." Okay, you passed. So I think if I'd have said, I'm buying a GSX 1000 or a BMW RRRR, he might have got a bit more excited. But once you do pass, it's a great feeling, isn't it? But yeah, I'm going to go out and carry on riding. It's a beautiful day. As you know, I'm in France, so and I'm not on the Roundtree. I'm in the I'm on the Rock, Le Rock. This is just a place I could find. This is all bedrock round here, because this is a huge river valley. But yeah, there we go. Not a big video. I'm going to do some drone stuff today, and I'll be putting that in for B-roll. And yeah, there we are. Right, take care everybody, and I'll see you in the next video, which will be from Orm. Right, take care.